All right, we know now what Nick Saban will be doing after his time in Alabama is done, and that is joining ESPN to do a lot of different stuff. I did want to reach out and talk to you all about this. He's going to work, quote, primarily as an on-set analyst on the set of College Game Day, ESPN's award-winning weekly college football roadshow. He's also going to do multi-day NFL draft coverage and make appearances tied to media days, SEC media days, and some ESPN platforms as well as the SEC Network. This is not a surprise. My friends over at Disney and ESPN suggested to me that this was coming. I look like I belong on a yacht right now. Sorry about that. Look, I think Nick's going to be great at this. He's very good in these scenarios. He's obviously had a tie with ESPN for some time, doing some work, analyst work for that network when his team was not playing for the national championship. Perhaps the most famous one was when David Pollock basically told him right in front of his face that Alabama was going away and Georgia was there to stay. And on the national scene, we're going to see if that happens. But Georgia was in the midst at that moment of winning its second national championship in as many years. I do want to point out just real quick, make sure that you're picking up Dawg with Keely Rigo's signature. So this is very, very rare. I don't know if we're going to do this again, frankly. I've got some of these left. This was a pretty big moment. This was Nick's last chance to win the national championship. Pick that up. I'll put the link down below, or you can see it in the shop that's below. But look, I think there's going to be a lot of, the sort of the hardcore Georgia fans are going to say, well, listen, the guy's the greatest coach of all time. He's very good in terms of, I think he'll be very good on ESPN. He was just something too good to pass up, if you ask me. And I don't think, there was anything. This makes a lot of sense. Nick said ESPN and College Game Day have played such an important role in the growth of college football. True. And I am honored to have an opportunity to join their team. I'll do my best to offer additional insights and perspective and contribute to Game Day, the ultimate Saturday tradition for college football fans. I've been outside in the cold, so that's what's going on. Then ESPN's chair Jimmy Patiro says Nick Saban is a singular, iconic presence in college football. He is also an extremely gifted communicator who will immediately add even more credibility, authority, and entertainment value to ESPN, including our esteemed College Game Day show. So I think this is great. I'll just tell you right now, I'm looking forward to it because, Nick has insight into the SEC that other folks simply just don't have. I don't know what we're calling modern SEC. I would say anything post, I would say this century, which coincides with Nick coming into the league, by the way. That's sort of what I would call at this point the modern SEC. I would say anything post Bear Bryant is sort of mid-modern or just pre-modern, and then everything before that, 70s and backwards, you're getting into the older days of college football. In modern college football, there's been no more successful coach than Nick. I think he's going to give us insight into what Kirby's doing. There's been Kirby has 16 losses total in 8 years of football. About a third of those have come from Nick Saban. So, Nick is going to give us insight into what he sees when things are going on. There's no one who has who has shown a better capability of building, sustaining a program than Nick Saban. And I think that, Urban Meyer is a voice. He ain't Nick Saban, though. And so congrats to ESPN and Disney for grabbing Nick while he was out there. But I'm sure when he did a segment on Pat McAfee. This was going to happen. And it was pretty evident that was going to happen. I don't think he needs to be calling games. I think that that's asking him too much as an analyst for someone who's retired. That's not being retired. I know people that do that. That's a tough gig. You got to really study and so forth. But I think it's great. And I think he'll give insight into what's going on in college football. Perhaps he will. The further he gets away from Alabama and the SEC, the more he will sort of lighten up and tell the stories that need to be told about why he left, what he saw while he was in the league, why they were so successful for such a long time at Alabama. there's no shortage of things that can be discussed or talked about from Nick. But I think it's a big power move for ESPN. I mean, this is a company that in the last, 3 days, I guess, I read their announcement from that they teamed up with Fox and Warner Brothers, Time Warner Discovery. I mean, that's such a convoluted name. They should have just stuck with HBO. But that those three entities were forming a portal basically to watch all of their sports content for anywhere from it's going to land anywhere from $25 to $35 a month. A lot of people are going to buy that. A lot of men are going to buy that, and so that's big news from those companies. But for Disney to nail this down as well, that's two pretty big college football moves in the matter of 72 hours. So their post cable, they're mapping out their post cable world, and it involves a lot of SEC programming. For the record, I mean, the SEC is as critical to the future of Disney's plan at ESPN as any other brand that's not the NFL. I think it's probably more important than the NBA, but that's probably close because there's so much content that you get from SEC programming that it's going to allow you to really build a portfolio of things to do every single weekend. The only thing that consistently can fight with the NFL, and they always lose, is college football. They're not on the same day ever, with the exception of some Thursday night games. But adding Nick to what ESPN's doing and centering around an SEC guy, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, Urban Meyer, people wouldn't. That's the only other person I can think of right now that is in this space where Nick is at. Dabo would be a good question. Dabo would not add what Nick has added, but Urban's won 3 national championships over almost a decade, about this period worth of time. I don't know what Dabo would, and Dabo's still coaching. Kirby wouldn't have the name recognition as Nick Saban, and Kirby's still coaching. So, Mac Brown, no one cared about him as an analyst. People will care about what Nick Saban says because they care about what Nick Saban says now. I know that. I mean, it's something that's important in the world, in the world of college football. And you look at now, I could see a scenario where, Nick is on Paul Feinbaum on Tuesdays, he's on Pat McAfee on Tuesdays, and then he's on Game Day Live, and that's just what it is for him. And they're, ESPN, Disney, they're going to get a lot of value out of that. They're going to get a lot of, run from that. People are going to care what's said there, but I think they're bolstering what they've got. Obviously, you're at some stage, Lee Corso will not be on the stage. And say what you want about Pat McAfee. And I kind of really, I'm not in either camp. I don't really care. I mean, I think he's providing for them something that they have not had, which is original content that is catered to, for lack of a better term, bros. And he's getting a lot of folks that have come in the door and are willing to just sit there and talk. Much more like Howard Stern than it is the other programming that ESPN has had. So it's more organic. This move now is yet another. You could have Nick on occasionally from Charlotte. You got to keep in mind he lives I don't know where he's gonna live. It could be that he lives in Miami and takes it from there. But I mean, he has a place in Rabun County. And so he could just zip up to Charlotte, no problem, to be in studio with Paul every now and then. I don't think you'd want to do it all the time, but it's a great opportunity. I mean, ESPN's done a great job of getting what they want. They've reset the table kind of moving forward for College Game Day. They've got a Heisman Trophy winner. They've got the voice of the sport. They got, I don't know what you'd call Pat McAfee, but he's something. And then you've got Lee Corso, who has been sort of iconic in his role. And now you're going to add Nick Saban in some fashion. And that's people will pay attention to that. And I think that for all of the discussion from sort of the curmudgeon class about how game day sucks, I mean, people are watching it more than they ever have. So certainly in post-pandemic world, which is all that matters these days, because the numbers are, it's just a different world. But I think this is a curious move. And it's not a curious move. It makes a lot of sense, actually. It makes total sense. I'm glad for Nick that he gets to, expunge, or he gets to discuss his knowledge of a sport that he dominated for, I don't know, 15 years. I say good for Nick, and certainly good for ESPN and Disney, and good for the consumer. This will be good for y'all. You'll see.